Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and it is Sunday, the 13th of April in the year 2025. And I am recording this lovely podcast from beautiful Escazú, Costa Rica. We did it. We made it. We're finished. It's incredible. The retrogrades for now are over. Over. Everything is over. No more inner planet retrogrades, at least until Mercury goes retrograde again in several months. But Venus is done. Mars is done. Mercury is finished for now. And we are free of retrogrades for the first time. You know, there was only that one period between the 24th of February and the 1st of March. And that was the only time we were free of, but really Venus was stationing to go retrograde and Mars was stationing direct. So that was an overlap. But other than that, we have had no free time of retrogrades since December 6th. Okay? So this is remarkable. This is remarkable. We have been in this retrograde eclipse cycle for way too long. And I sent out a blog last night. If you're not on my mailing list, I suggest you get on my mailing list. So you go to thegoldenastrologer.com and a little box should pop up and it will tell you to put your email address in there, your name and email address, and it will invite you to my mailing list so that you can get my blog. But this has been one incredible time of revisiting, reviewing, revising, reworking, everything. And that's what retrogrades do. They ask us to go back and everything. And this is why we have retrogrades, because there are times when we need to review things, and there are times when we need to work through stuff that has been festering maybe, or we haven't been paying a lot of attention to it, and they come back and they get our attention, the retrogrades. And you know, when the planets, the inner planets especially, are closer to the Earth, they are very strong. And so we've had some very intense retrograde periods like this, because that's when the inner planets are closer to the Earth. So Venus finally went direct last night in my region of the world at 7 p.m. And Mercury went last week, and the full moon last night was Venus ruled. So as I've been talking about, so this is a very Venusian time. There was a square from Mars, and then the sun was with Chiron. So the wounds definitely came forward. The freedom, the feeling, I certainly feel a sense of relief and freedom after all of this has been resolved, after it's all been done. So this is good. This is really very, very positive. And we can sort of step back and look at these last months and say, okay, what was this about for you? And how did you come through this? And what did you take away from this? And what was your realizations during these times? And, you know, but there's always the shadow. So what the shadow, people recently asked me what the shadow is. The shadow is when, you know, Mars went, okay, so let's use Mars. Mars went retrograde at 6 degrees Leo on December 6th. Now, it went direct at about 17 degrees of Cancer. It went retrograde, went back, about 17 degrees of Cancer. So at some point before December 6th, back last October, November, Mars went to 17 degrees of Cancer. That's the pre-retrograde shadow. And what we want to see now is Mars go to 6 degrees of Leo. So now we're waiting for Mars to get to 6 degrees Leo, and then it will be clear of its shadow. And then it's free from the retrograde at all. You know, it's done. And what the shadow is it means that the place where Mars was going back and forth 3 times, that's where we have a lot of the extra information and things happening. It means that Mars was retrograde as of 6 degrees, but all that time that it's okay, so it got to 6 degrees, it turned around, it stayed at 6 degrees for a while, for like a few weeks. For a few weeks, remember, getting there, staying there, moving backwards, and then moving only in those 6 degrees of Leo in December. And then what that means is it's a very concentrated effort. Mars goes one way past it, forward, goes backwards, and then it goes forwards again and moves over these things again. My lights just came back on. My lights have been off for the last 4.5 hours. We had an electrical explosion out front. It's like a bird hits a pole in Costa Rica, and the bird hits the pole, things go boom, and all of a sudden you have an outage. And you was like, okay, that's it. All right, we got to wait without electric. So good, the electric's back on. So what I want to explain to you now is that Mars is going out of its shadow by May 3rd. So even though Mars is direct, even though Mars is in a definite forward motion, it's still in the sign of Cancer, and it's still now processing this whole experience, and we are processing this whole Mars retrograde experience until, we get to May 3rd. It's going to go back into Leo the 19th. Okay, so that's next Saturday. So that's one thing, as we're working towards this week ahead. One thing that's going to happen in the coming week is that on Friday at 12:21 a.m. Eastern Time, Mars will go into Leo. And it will be finished its tour of duty in the sign of Cancer. So if you're a Cancerian, a Capricorn, a Libra, or an Aries, you're going to feel some relief from all this back and forth of Mars, because Mars has been there since January, since the beginning of January, like January 1st or 2nd, and now it's April. And it was there before it went into Leo in November. And it's been just a very long, frustrating kind of time, because when Mars is slow or it's retrograde and out of bounds, as it's been, it is definitely not its self. It's not in its usual state of affairs. It's not in its usual forward motion, motivated warrior sense, right? So what we're looking at is that Mars is taking its show on the road back into Leo, where it can be splashy and fiery and feisty and passionate, right? So that's good news. So that's one thing happening this week. This is a very, very positive sign. We're moving forward. We're moving out of this whole retrograde thing. What I also want to tell you, now that's this week, but it doesn't go back out of the shadow until May 3rd. The other thing is that Mercury, not this week, but the following week on the 25th of Friday, is when Mercury goes out of its shadow. Okay, so Mercury was in Aries. Mercury went backwards into Pisces, moves forwards in Pisces. And this week, another big positive change. On Wednesday the 16th, Mercury will enter Aries again. So that's 2:25 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday morning the 16th. So this is great. Now we're having two planets this week that have been in retrograde, that have been sticklers all these months. Now they're moving and they're really making progress, okay? So this is great. And Mercury and Mars are now both going to be in fire, and we're going to be experiencing this in fire. And so now we're like getting more fire and we're getting motivated. Now we feel like moving forward. Now we feel motivated again, right? So this is great. This is great. And so then the other would be Venus. And Venus just went direct yesterday. So Venus moving back into Aries is not until April 30th. But she'll meet with Saturn again on the 24th. And when she goes into Aries again, April 30th, it's going to take her till May 15th to get to the point where she's out of the shadow, where she's like 9-10 degrees of Aries, right? So this is really something special. We're finally shaking out this whole section of 2025. Now, remember what I said at the end of last year. And if you have and have watched my or attended my 2025 The Liminal Labyrinth masterclass, I was describing how we were going to have an extension of 2024 because Mars was going retrograde and it was going to stay that way, and then Venus and then Mercury. So really, the issues from last year that we have been working on, the stuff that we needed to revisit and revise, that's all just finishing when we get to Venus going direct in mid-May. Now you're saying, Deb, but Venus went direct, yesterday, and she was retrograde in this year. Right, but she was still asking us to look at stuff from this previous year because it's still early enough. It's not like Venus went retrograde in November of what's coming up in November. It's early enough in the year to say all of this information that we've been sort of dealing with. And Venus was in Pisces as of January, right? So it was in Pisces as of January, and we didn't have much of a year where Venus was not in a place to be looking at the retrograde this year. So, sorry folks, this year that we have been experiencing, Venus entered Pisces on January 2nd. This year that we've been experiencing has really been an extension of last year. And so 2024 is really going into mid-May of this year. So I said it was going to feel like this. It does feel like this. It has felt like this. The year really could not move forward into the newness and that feeling of, yes, I'm setting my intentions and doing my resolutions. That wasn't going to happen. And I said this for a while. So if you haven't felt like you really jump-started your year, it's because of this. It's because of all this retrograde business. And so we can have a New Year's celebration in mid-May when all of this is finally out of the shadow and out of the way. And I think we're going to have a really special, different feeling when we get to the month of May. I feel like we're going to really see some clarity and some forward movement. So if you feel like you've been trudging through this year, you are not alone. This is the nature of this year, and this is the nature of what we've been living through since last December. So this is now starting to shake out and let up and free up the energy that we have. We should all be happy. We should be proud. We should be thrilled with ourselves and how well we have done. And how well have you done? Think about it. What have you been through? I did a lot of emotional healing work. I've been in some programs with a mentor these last few months, and I still want to go back over all the classes and really dig in more and get it from a different perspective. And this is really important when we sort of revise in these last months. I myself definitely dug in and got to some old patterns and cleared them out. But this has been a complicated time. So breathe that sigh of relief. Go out and celebrate. Go out and have a good time. Free yourself up. Feel like you have made progress. And look, more importantly, give yourself some credit for where the progress has been in your life. What have you done? What progress have you experienced? Give yourself a pat on the back. Love yourself. Give yourself a credit, okay? And this is a deeply, deeply important place to be, okay? So know that you have done something. It's not like, well, I just kept waiting around for the year to start. No, you got things done. You had to because you went on with your life. So this is where we can certainly congratulate ourselves. So congratulations to all my astro darlings out there. I congratulate myself. I give myself a pat on the back, and you do too. So now let's keep moving. Let's keep moving to something that gives us more momentum and excitement and opportunities, and let's celebrate. So good. Okay, the other things that are happening this week is that once Mercury goes into Aries, Mercury will conjunct Neptune. And this, my friends, my astro darlings, is the first time that Mercury and Neptune are going to meet in the sign of Aries, because when they met before, it was in Pisces. And so this is a big, fresh perspective. Now, Mercury and Neptune are interesting together. They are interesting together in the sign of Aries, because Aries is all about fire. And so Mercury's what? Fast ideas. I want it now. Instant gratification. Let's do it. And so what we're looking at really is that Neptune, in all its flowing energy and all its sensitivity and all its inspiration and creativity, is meeting up with the planet of details and information. And so Mercury and Neptune definitely together create a time of intuition, of messages from spirit, of messages from the ancestors, of messages from a place other than our analytical mind, from your intuition. So this is a time on Wednesday when you want to kind of step inside that feeling of Wednesday and Thursday, really, because there'll be a hangover. When they come together, you want to tap into your intuition, let it flow, let it speak. And if it comes in rapid fire ways, know that's the signature of Aries that's speaking to you. If you feel like you are tapping into something, go with it, flow with it, move with it. And it might come when you're doing something very active, like you're at the gym, like you're out for a run, you're out walking, you're exercising, because that's what Aries does. It's like moving the energy, moving the energy. Oh, and in the midst of that, hey, I got an insight. I got some inspiration. I got an idea, a creative idea for something. Let me write it down while I'm like running on the treadmill. And so this is something that you should stay alert for. And it could be surprising. It like springs up at you and it comes from sort of nowhere. It's not that slow Pisces meditative space where you're in the peace. This is more, I was bopping around in my day and I got this insight. And I think it can be really useful. So they are going to do some nice talking to Mars, which is entering Leo between Thursday and Friday, depending on where you live and what your time zone is. And, Mars is going to talk to Neptune on Saturday exactly. Mars will trine Neptune. That is a flowing 120-degree aspect. And they're going to speak in tongues. Fire, they're going to speak in fire, in flame. It's like the burning bush that spoke, to Moses. This is something where we're getting some fiery action with Mars and Neptune and Mercury and Neptune, and we're getting some fiery inspiration. Mars and Neptune are an interesting duo because Mars is very much the assertive one. It can be aggressive. It's that warrior planet. And now that it's going to be back in Leo again, it's like, yeah, I'm going to be pushing my way through things here. I'm going to be pushing for the answers, pushing for the right things. The thing is that Mars and Neptune are not necessarily planets that cohabitate smoothly, because this is a smooth aspect, but Neptune is all about, the flow and listening to the universal timing on things, when Mars is like, just forget universal timing. Let's just do it, And so they are coming together in a very smooth way. Mars and Neptune, as I have said before on this podcast, if you have listened, Mars and Neptune can be tricky. This is a good aspect. This is a flowing aspect. They are speaking sweetly to one another, but it still can be, oh, I think I can trust this person, and then you find out you can't. So this is an opportunity to really read between the lines and get a real gut intuition sense of what's happening with people. And if you don't want to involve yourself with people, it's like, I think this might be something I don't want, And it really is some time to ponder before you initiate. So Mars and Neptune will say, oh, this feels right, I'm doing it. Make sure it really doubly feels right. Double check with your intuition. Feel into your gut. What really is happening here? And how does it feel? Does it make you feel like, I feel, yes, this is right? Or, I want this to be right, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. And that may not be the case. That may not be the case. So we want to definitely sense into this, because Mars gets excited, especially in a fire sign, and then it gets like boiling water when we're dealing with Neptune, which is a watery planet. So this is really important. Pay attention to your gut. Listen to your instincts. Listen to your hunches. Know if you have been in this situation before, and maybe there's someone in your life that you trust and you shouldn't, and you've trusted them before and you're going to give them another chance. Maybe that's not the right thing to do. It's using your discernment as well as your intuition. Another thing that is happening this week is that Aries season is ending. So that means the sun, and only the sun, is leaving Aries. It's going to finish up its yearly visit to the sign, and it's going to go into the sign of Taurus on Saturday the 19th. So the sun enters Taurus at 3:56 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's going into that nice, slow Venus-ruled sign. And it is all about the experience of, grounded feelings, being financially stable, security-oriented, making sure there's food on the table, making sure that you have things in the cupboard. It's always about a certain amount of stability and security. It's very different than Aries, obviously. So if you know a Taurus, you know an Aries, you're going to know that they are very different people. Now, this is interesting because the only planet that's been in Earth is Uranus. And Uranus is in Taurus, and has been in Taurus for a long time. And so this experience of Uranus and Taurus, Uranus is not a stable influence. Even in Taurus, it's not a stable, we can rely on it sort of energy. It is a here today, gone tomorrow. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. You got to keep open. And you never know what Uranus is going to bring round. So this is a planet that is not bringing stability to the sign of Taurus. It brings more chaos, which Taurus people do not like. Aries people can take that in their stride. Taurus people do not like change. They do not like chaos. They want things to be, stable and secure. Okay? Now, when the sun enters Taurus, the sun will definitely have the experience of bringing more stability, because the sun comes in and it shines, and it's good in Taurus. It likes being in Taurus. But it's fine. And then, maybe there'll be some more grounded feelings going around, because everything in Pisces and everything in Aries, and then, Mars and Cancer, none of this, Mars and Cancer going into Leo, none of this is earthbound. None of it. And, we have been living for years with Uranus and Taurus and Pluto and Capricorn. And now Pluto has moved on and not going back to Capricorn. So there's not this 15-year, 16-year experience of an outer planet in an earth sign anymore. And that's not the way it's going to be going forward. We're looking at big changes. And you can see, again, everybody keeps saying, the world is crazy. The world is nuts. Oh my God, can you believe this? Did it? Yeah. Yeah, I can, because Pluto's changed signs. Neptune just changed signs. Saturn's going to change signs. Uranus is going to change signs in July. So this is so much, so too much, and it's making everybody's head spin, and it makes for a very unstable feeling. None of this is going into earth. None of it. It's all fire and air. This is taking action, thinking about it, doing it. Thinking about it, doing it. It's the air, it's the fire. Air is thinking, analyzing, preparing, and then the fire says, yeah, let's go. This is so different than living with Pluto in Capricorn for so many, a decade and a half, It's very powerful, but we are going to feel like we're being swept along in a way that we are not used to being, you know. So don't worry about Uranus. We'll talk more about that as we get through the year. But in other words, this Taurus season we're going to have for the next 4 weeks, appreciate it. Get your finances done. Get your banking in order. Do some planting in your garden. Get some stability in your life. Focus on the stability as we move through the Taurus season, okay? So eventually Venus will get there. Eventually Mercury will get there, but not right now. And that'll bring us some more stability and perhaps a breath of, you know, fresh air, breathing, just sort of feeling grounded and maybe just a little more stable as we get through the Taurus season. So not there yet, though. Other things happening this week is that, you know, or that Mars is going to be squared by the Sun next Sunday, the 20th at 9:34 p.m. The Sun will be in Taurus and Mars will be in the beginning of Leo, and they challenge one another. That's very sticky energy. That is, that's very masculine energy, and it is very much a stubborn energy. And Mars in Leo is a stubborn energy. Sun in Taurus, a stubborn energy. So we're moving into a little more of a stubborn, fixed time. And by the way, since Pluto's in Aquarius, these planets are going to start connecting with Pluto. So remember last year, remember in November that Mars opposed Pluto. And it was at the very, very, very end of Capricorn. And then it moved back retrograde and it opposed Pluto again at the end of the year, beginning of the year, with Mars in the early degree of Leo, opposing Pluto in Aquarius, which it had been newly really stable in Aquarius. And so we're going to experience the third passage, the third opposition, not this week. Next week, we're going to get that. That'll be the end of next week, which will be the end of April, if you can believe it. But this coming week, we are not getting that rock and roll of Mars and Pluto. We'll talk about that next podcast. But get ready, because now that things are going into Taurus and fixed signs, Leo and Aquarius and Taurus and Aquarius, this is where they start tangling with Pluto, where they start tangling in a way with Pluto that has been, you know, not tangled with before, because Pluto's newly in Aquarius. So Sun and Pluto will hang out next week. We'll get into more of that Plutonian stuff next week, but you can see that the energies are already starting to get revved up. Once Mars goes into Leo this week, Thursday, Friday, then we're going to start seeing a whole other dynamic, okay? That's really powerful. It's something to pay attention to. Pluto is the planet of transformation. It's the planet of empowerment, and it is the planet of resurrection after there's been a transformation, a death in some ways. So this is important to step forward into our power as we move to this. And this is going to start triggering the power of the masses, because Aquarius rules, it's a collective sign. It's a sign of the collective unconscious, and it rules groups and communities. And if people are not happy with the way things are going in the world, they may start doing things like marching, like protesting, like complaining, like going out there and doing something else. So this is where we're going to get a whole other dynamic moving with Mars and Pluto and any planets that go into a fixed sign. They're going to attend to Pluto. We started having this earlier this year when we had, Mercury and Pluto and, the Sun and Pluto and Venus and Pluto, which Venus and Pluto were last year really. But this is a whole other, now we're second rounding it. We're not just in, Aquarius season, we're going into Taurus season. So now we're experiencing a whole other level of planets connecting themselves to Pluto. So this is the way it's going to start being. And anytime Aquarius gets provoked, well, then we're going to start seeing Pluto raise its power and say, hey, the power of the masses, the power of the group, the community, the collective. We don't like this, we're going to say something about it. So watch this in the world. Watch how this starts to happen. This is something very profound that we haven't seen yet in our culture. Of course, we see marches and we see protests and things, but there's movements coming. There's revolutions coming. This is Aquarius, right? Absolutely. Next week, we're going to get the moon in Aquarius on Sunday. And once it enters Aquarius at 7:22 p.m. Eastern time, it's going to start triggering the other planets. So when the sun and Mars make that square to one another, the moon is going to be in part of that. The moon will oppose Mars, and then it's going to conjunct Pluto. So it's going to be in a T-square with the sun and Mars, and then connect that whole situation to Pluto. There's going to be a big T-square happening next Sunday. So it's going to be between Sun and Mars squaring each other, then Moon opposing Mars, then Moon squaring Sun. So right there's your T-square, and that's all going to be at like 9:30, right after another, 9:34, 9:35, 9:36. That's how quickly this is all going to happen. That's Eastern time in the evening, 9:34, 9:35, 9:36 p.m. next Sunday, the 20th. On Easter, if you celebrate Easter, it's also Orthodox Easter. It's also the end of Passover. So Easter's going to be wild. It's going to be a little bit of wild energy on Easter. And then the moon will eventually conjunct Pluto late that night, early the next morning, as it makes its way through Aquarius. But once it steps into Aquarius, it's going to be tangling with the sun and tangling with Mars. It's the first square to the sun after the full moon yesterday. So it's the fourth quarter. And that's going to be a powerful day. So we've got another strong, energetic week, and I expect energies to be strong. I expect us to pick it up, do things, take initiation and action in places we haven't done before in recent months. So watch your energy change. Watch your energy shift, and listen to your gut, of course, because of all that Neptune this week, but listen to what's happening and watch what's happening, because this is going to be very, very interesting as we have all sorts of new energy to explore. New energy with Neptune in Aries. New energy with Mercury meeting Neptune in Aries. So this is going to happen again. Once Venus goes into Aries, she's going to meet up with Neptune, right? Not for a little while yet. So this is profound. So I want you to pay attention. Make some observations. You can share them with me either on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer. You can write to me, info@thegoldenastrologer.com, or deb@debmcbride.com. And also, I offer you the opportunity, of course, to have a session with me if you'd like to do astrology with me, if you'd like to do Reiki with me, or if you'd like to start an expansion mentoring program with me. You can work with me by just either contacting me at those email addresses or going to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and clicking on book online and choosing your appointment. And I always look forward to meeting people who find me through my podcast, who find me through life, who find me word of mouth. I always look forward to meeting new people. So thank you for listening, and thank you for joining me in session when you do. Lots to ponder this week, but really an exciting move forward this week. So good. So go out there, take some new initiative, get your energy back, go out and play. Go out and play and enjoy yourself and celebrate. Thank you so much. Much, much gratitude to each and every one of you for sticking it out these months, all of us together on this podcast. And there's going to be more excitement coming as everything moves out of its shadow and we see what waits for us as 2025 really begins. I'm excited. How about you? Thank you for listening. Gratitude to all. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. Welcome, Taurus.